Welcome to STARS Launch Pod, where we chat with innovators who are overcoming challenges, pushing boundaries, and collaborating to make space more accessible and sustainable for humanity, one launch at a time.
It's one small step for man.
Here's your host, Susan Wise.
Hi, and welcome to STARS Launch Pod, Space Technology and Research Sciences, brought to you by starsciences.org, where we connect, collaborate, and accelerate. I'm your host, Susan Wise, and thrilled and so excited to have with us on STARS Launch Pod today, Janet Ivey of Janet's Planet. Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Big fan here, CEO and founder of Janet's Planet, 2022 American Astronautical Society's recipient of Sally K. Ride Excellence in Education Award. Yes, Janet is an educator, speaker, advocate, bringing science, storytelling, and space to life for students of all ages, including this old student right here. I'm a huge fan and so thrilled to have you here, Janet. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. And for anybody out there listening, this opportunity even was brought to my attention by a former student or somebody who I still mentor, and he is 12. So big shout out to Lucas for the introduction to you, Susan.
Love it. He was wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us. Let's talk more. First, let's explain to people a little bit about Janet's Planet. Can you do that?
Sure. Janet's Planet is basically an education company where we're either in performing arts centers doing a live show, or we're doing a teaching residency, or we're doing what I call Janet's Planet Astronaut Academies. And when I started doing Janet's Planet almost 25 years ago, the idea came about 4 years before that, but it's like we started as interstitials on public television that eventually came into, hey, we could probably tour this if you put together a show. Then somebody said, do you have camps? And then COVID happened and we flipped entirely and launched sort of an online platform where I've taught students for several years. And then I was like, oh, I love being in person with them, but did find out that the virtual space can be and create meaningful connections. But yeah, so it's funny when people try to say, what is it exactly? Well, it's an entire galaxy of things. It's outreach, it's a platform, it's a show. So many things under that one umbrella.
I love your show. I learned so many things. I was just glued to it. It was very enlightening. Tell us what you're currently working on to further the space industry.
So a couple of things, I guess, Susan, I should say the most fun that I have is when I get to really be in a class or an auditorium. A few weeks ago, I was in a gymnasium with 170 third graders, and I'm explaining about the Artemis 2 mission that we're going to finally have, astronauts orbit the moon. Golly, it's been over 53 years since we've done something like that. And so when you start to, there's something about being able to explain, okay, here's the mechanism. Now we're going to create this. We don't yet have a lunar lander. Let's see what you can build. And then I kind of gamify it a little bit and go, anybody come up with a really great idea today? And I'm going to have to call my friends at NASA. And then they come up with these things and you're like, I'm taking pictures, and I do end up sending it to a friend of mine at JPL going, we don't have a lander yet. Maybe this is something. The hands-on outreach, the teaching residencies, that's one thing. And a lot of times I'm going into very rural areas. For example, I'm going to be in Klamath Falls, Oregon, which has 25% of the folks there are at poverty level. So being able to go in there covered by a grant and give kids a window of opportunity to create kind of like a moment like, oh, I didn't even know that was possible. So that's the other thing. It's like, we need industry in the future. It's like many of these companies are going to need a workforce. So part of that is what I feel like is really my mission, is to make sure that kids who might not otherwise have the opportunity to be exposed to some of these possibilities, that we provide those. This past summer, through the Janet's Planet Explore Science Foundation, we were able to send 25 kids to space camp.
Oh,
So 19 of them went to U.S. Space and Rocket Center Space Camp, and then 6 others went to the Cosmosphere. They also have space academies there. And lastly, for a long time, when this dream comes true, it will be like the 30-year overnight success story. But we're working with an animation company out of Brazil on what would be an animated version of Janet's Planet. And the good news about that is that as I age and get older, the Janet's Planet animated character will not.
I love that.
So no Botox for her. So fingers crossed in that. But that's that thing that that has been my personal dream for a long time. It would still carry all of the science content, et cetera.
I was thinking about, you were talking about the students, and some of them were like third graders. I can only imagine some of the questions you get. Is there one that comes to mind that just floors you?
Well,
I know
it's
some
like,
of them
it's
are like,
kind of
how do you pee in space?
I was going to say, it depends on what, yeah. So you usually get that question about how do you go to the bathroom in space. But some of the most profound ones go, and I'll never forget, it was down in Newberry, South Carolina. We were talking about, building habitats on Mars. And this kid comes up very, very solemnly and goes, "Could you build a church on Mars?"
Aw.
And I was like, I guess if it's that important to you, yes. So that was kind of like, something that was like unexpected. And then you'll get the kid, "Well, Janet, you know that there are microorganisms and potentially microbial life in the blah, blah, blah on Mars, and they'll know more than me." Or they'll ask me some question about black holes. And, is it really true that it would be spaghettification, or is it a time, wormhole or something? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. And you're going to be the person to figure that one out. But I love that. I love being able to say to a group of kids when they ask me a question that I got nothing, is that, you know what? I don't know the answer. Your job is you're going to get really, really kind of like informed about that. And then you're going to come back the next time I'm here in your classroom, and you're going to tell me and everybody else about it.
Love that.
And that for me is that opens up those corridors of curiosity. Because then they become the researcher,
Right.
and I'm not spoon feeding that information
No,
to
you're
them.
planting that seed. I love that. What has been one of your big aha moments on this journey?
So I've been thinking about this question, and while I have had several light bulb moments, I think my biggest aha moment happened when I realized that kids, we tend to like dumb down the content for them. But the true, real measure is that we should be talking to them like they are the best innovators ever. And I have found, whether it's kids on the spectrum or kids with ADHD or whatever their special awesomeness may be, if I love first and teach second, and then give them and assume that they are my colleagues, it is astounding what they will come up with. And so for me, that was the aha thing, that it comes down to personal relationship. If I create a relationship with them, then they go, "Oh, okay, now I want to do the work." And then I create an experience with them like, "Whoa, I love this. And I really like Miss Janet." And then if we did both that relationship and that experience, that I feel is where we get long-term engagement.
That it gave me goosies. That's a wonderful aha moment. I love it. I'm sure this doesn't come without your challenges. So let's talk about maybe one of your biggest challenges and how did you overcome it?
When I was first entering the sort of space scene, I had been doing the interstitials for public television for a while. And so I self-funded a little DVD project and reached out to tons of people. And this one guy from the National Space Society, Richard Godwin, as I reached out to him on LinkedIn, said, "Well, hey, if you don't do anything else for your company, you should come to the International Space Development Conference." So at the time, because of the way I was booked on other things, I had a representative for Janet's Planet go, So they were passing out the DVD. And shortly after, I start getting invited to more of these conventions and things like that. And I even ended up getting invited to produce something for Space Florida about microgravity. So it was well timed that my representative had gone there. But my biggest challenge over the years is because I work with kids. I'm a theatrical actress, and so I'm always playing to the back row, right? So that can be overwhelming to certain people. So early on, I'm at some space conference or something, and I literally have a couple of gentlemen ask me, "Are you always like this?" Pretty much. And even after I was president of Explore Mars, I'm backstage, like, you know, I'm greeting our guests. We're making sure they're coming on and off the stage correctly. Again, it was me. It's like I'm enthusiastic. I love life, and I'm like, "Hey, everybody, good to see you." And yet another great gentleman asked me, "Are you always like this?" And it's like there's a part of you, or at least a part of me, that was wanting, like, when those things happen, you're like, should I apologize? Should I change?
Mhm.
And then I think I've read recently, it's like, I'm a strong cup of coffee, and I may be your brand or I'm not your brand, but I'm not going to hide my light either. So part of that imposter syndrome and that kind of, like, I would sort of get that it's so cute what you do. And I was like, what? It is not cute. Let me tell you, there is nothing cute about this. Have you ever tried to classroom manage 170 third graders in a gym and succeed? There's nothing cute about it. And so those are those things that I've had to overcome. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, stand my ground, be clearly who I am with, like, I mean, I would dare say that anybody in the space industry that I know or has heard of me, there isn't any doubt what I'm really about. I love space, but I love kids more. And I love kids so much that I want them to succeed in their space dreams if that's where they want to go. But everybody knows that I'm about launching the lives of the next generation of kiddos. So that's where I stand. So I had a gentleman who was a space artist. His name was Pat Rawlings. And I'm at a conference down in Austin. This was 10 years ago. So I'm standing there looking at his beautiful art, and I don't know what I said to somebody standing near me, probably something apologetic, like, "Oh, well, I just do this. I'm not really blah, blah, blah." And so that person walks away and he goes, "I know what you have." And I'm like, and he said, "You've got, imposter syndrome." He goes, "But can I help you?" And I was like, "I'd be happy for you to." And he goes, "When I first started working for NASA, engineers would bring me a conceptual design, or they would bring me their design for some new thing they were thinking about making. And then they would say, 'Hey, Pat, can you draw us an illustration of what this might look like?' And he said, and he goes, I would draw it out based on like what they're talking about. He goes, but then I would catch myself going, but this thing needs a handle. This should have a mirror. This should do this. And so he goes, I would add things thinking that none of them would be paying attention to some like artist rendering. Then the engineers would come back and go, holy cow, thank you, Pat, for putting that in there. Of course, it's what we need to do. Like, you helped with us with our design process. And he goes, after that happened a couple of times, I realized that if I were invited to the table, then it was meant that I should be at the table. And he goes, I would say the same thing for you, that if you are invited to be here to educate and help future workforces develop, he goes, then you're intended to be here. And that was such a beautiful, great gift from this very amazing artist. And I think that was maybe one of those turning points where I was like, yeah, I'm here. Well, I'm apologizing for being who I am. So
And I love what you are. I love everything about you and your presence. And
Thank you.
it's contagious. Your energy is like on another level, and it just brings everybody in the room up with you. And I love that.
But you know what? It's a bit of that physics principle, Susan. It's like, remember, energy's never destroyed. It's only transferred. And so you have to be this sort of Taurus of energy when you're with kids, because we, like, again, all of us have about the attention span of gnats on espresso. And because of social media, the screen, etc. So if I'm not engaging them and wowing them and like, whoa, what just hit me? It's like that for me is that principle by which I operate. I do think I kind of came into this world going, hey, where's the party? Come on, let's get something going. But especially when you're trying desperately for kids to be engaged, it is
To
like
get their
feeling
attention.
that,
Right.
yes,
Oh.
just like send out the life force
Mhm.
of like, I love you, I care about you. Now let's get some creativity
I
going
love
here.
that. What one piece of advice would you like to share with our listeners? Do you have some advice?
I do. I'm going to quote my favorite theologian, Frederick Buechner. And the quote is something like, you will always be called to the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. And so my advice for any listeners out there is, where do you find your deep gladness? Go there, because there's a hunger and there's somebody needing what it is you want to do or give away. And I am amazed and always so delighted when I have opportunities that come from around the world in surprising ways. I mean, in a few weeks, it's like we'll start a process with American embassies across the globe.
Wow.
And so that, I think, stand in your authentic self, no matter how many head pats or questions like, are you always like this, that happen? Find what it is that lights you up, that it's like, it doesn't matter whether or not you've had your double espresso or not, your feet hit the ground and you are ready to do it. And then to never assume that what you have is too small or too insignificant to make a difference. I always tell kids about Clyde Tombaugh, who discovered Pluto. And, his family's farm was destroyed right before he was to go off to college. That did not prevent him from building his own telescope out of old farm machine parts and the headlights off of his dad's old Buick. And he built his own telescope. He started drawing pictures, sending images of Jupiter and Mars to the Lowell Observatory. And they were like, hey, this kid is good. So they hired him. And then Percival Lowell even gave him the wrong coordinates to look in the sky for this planet they thought was beyond Neptune. And with no college degree, remember, he couldn't go to college. The parents and family needed that to rebuild. And so with no college education, he discovers Pluto in 10 months. And the little girl that named Pluto, Venetia Burney Fair, was 11 years old when her papa worked for the Royal Astronomical Society. And, she was like, Papa, I believe this newly discovered planet should be named Pluto, after the god of the underworld, because it's so far away and so difficult to see. So he goes off to his meeting. They, of course, as adults, can't agree on anything. And then finally he goes, well, my granddaughter believes it should be named Pluto. And all of a sudden they were like, sounds good to us. And so I tell that story because we always assume we're either not educated enough, too young, too old, too something, that our impact or our suggestion might be insignificant. So I think that's my advice to all of you who might be listening today.
Thank you, Janet. I know Janet's Planet, and this platform is your passion. Is there any other passion project that you would like to mention?
It was a dream of mine and something I wrote down in my journal. I believe very much in write it down, make it happen, that it's like when our heads and our hands get it down on paper, we're more likely to achieve those things. So years ago, I'd written this goal of doing Janet's Planet full time. And so I'm nearly there. I just got to get this animation done. But, one of the other things that I still do before I flew out to do my two last shows for the season in Oregon last week, I got up at 1:45 to put myself on camera for an episodic filming in Atlanta. The casting director actually sent me a note, said, fantastic audition. You don't look anything like the girl who would play your daughter, but I just want to let you know it was a great audition. I'll be calling you again. So that is the other vertical of my life that I still enjoy doing. I've done a couple of Christmas movies. One's called The Least of These on Amazon. So that's another thing. I love doing that because that is a job where I can show up and only do my part. Like, I'm not responsible for catering or anything else other than making sure that I am who I'm supposed to be that day. But for me, really, as I look at the next 10, 15, 20 years, I hope that it's always Janet's Planet and some kind of outreach engagement going on. And people will ask me, Susan, like, what's your exit strategy? And I'm like, oh, probably when grandma goes to Mars, that might be my exit strategy. I don't know, or I'll just extend the life of Janet's Planet there. But I think until I just simply cannot, there's something that lights me up about being around young people. I think it's what keeps me going and keeps me learning and keeps me making sure that I can still find a way, even in some of the toughest kids with some of the, unmentionable home lives possible, that if I can give them a moment of joy, that's what kind of keeps me going on.
You keep inspiring the next generation of explorers because that's what you do so well. And Janet, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. And we look forward to visiting again. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Everybody keep being curious and keep looking up.
That's my line. All right, make sure you join us where we connect, collaborate, and accelerate. We'd like to invite you to join starsciences.org to receive a free one-year membership. Just put in the promo code FRIENDS321. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review and subscribe. And until next time, keep looking up.
Don't miss an episode. Subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on social media. Stars Launch Pod, propelling us forward, one launch at a time.